Good morning. I'm Taylor Eighmy. I'm the Vice Chancellor for Research and Engagement at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. Is anybody here from the Tennessee General Assembly? If you are, I'd love to meet you afterwards and say hello. I'm looking forward to this conversation very much, and I'm going to start it off with two sort of observations. MIT, which Brad had mentioned earlier today about its efforts in Amsterdam, just released a report on the impact of all of the startup companies MIT alumni have established. To date, as of 2014, there are almost 31,000 companies stood up by MIT alums that are still functioning. They employ 4.6 million people. That's 4.6 million people, about 150 employees per company. And they generate about $1.9 trillion in revenue each year. That's about 70 million per company. That's profound. MIT is a private institution. And there is this notion of private institutions for private benefit. We are at a public institution, and part of our charter and our compact with the state of Tennessee is public benefit. And so how do we go about doing this exact kind of thing as a public institution? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that with you. So Brad mentioned this notion of what the knowledge enterprise is and how collaboration is important, where discovery comes from, who's paying attention to what people are creating, how does that translate into impact. Some of you may know that the University of Tennessee system is one of two higher ed systems in the state of Tennessee. The other is the Board of Regents system. We're comprised of a number of institutions around the state. The flagship is the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, where I work. I'm also going to add, though, Oak Ridge National Lab as one of our core partners, because UT, the system, and Battelle Memorial Institute operate this national lab. It's one of the biggest and best national labs in the DOE Office of Science system. And it represents in the Knoxville area of quite a density of thought leadership and thinking capacity, discovery capacity between the university and the lab. So if you look at what we offer as a system to the state of Tennessee, the University of Tennessee system has about a $2 billion annual budget. We do about $450 million in total research expenditures. We have about 39,000 undergraduates in our institutions right now. We have about 10,000 graduate students. We have about 4,600 faculty. About 1,500 of them are very much involved in the R&D enterprise, so not all 4,600 are. The lab is about a $1.5 billion annual budget. About $1 billion of it is in the research space, so they're about twice as big as the system. They have 4,000 employees, so they're pretty close to us. They have 1,300 PhDs, which makes them equivalent of the University of Minnesota in terms of the number of researchers located under one roof. It's quite a profound density of talent. And they have these user facilities that they operate for the Department of Energy that are world class, that everybody from around the world comes to use. And what's interesting between the system, mostly UT Knoxville, and the lab are these distinguished governor's chairs, joint faculty, joint institutes, PhD programs, extensive collaborations, investments in capital infrastructure in both campuses that are tying the two institutions together. And we've operated the lab since 2000, and it's had a profound impact on the growth trajectory of UT Knoxville in particular. So Brad talked about this notion of the knowledge economy, and I'm going to put at the center of that a brain that's producing thoughts and ideas and aha moments. And that discovery enterprise is all about ideas, collaboration, and knowledge transfer, and there are various elements that relate to the economy of that. Some is direct economic slowdown, some of it is workforce, some of it is new economies coming out of the intellectual property enterprise, licensing startups, investment in those. And then in some places, and I think Tony was alluding to this, and Brad was alluding to this, is this innovation ecosystem that stands up around a university location, and how that drives economy. So I want to talk to you a little bit about each of those elements with very simple examples. Let me go back for just a second. I should have introduced my two colleagues who are co-presenters here. Stacy Patterson is at the system level, the Associate Vice President for Research and Strategic Partnerships, but she's also the VP for the UT Research Foundation. And Jason Owen Smith is a professor at the University of Michigan, and he operates the Center for Research on Science and Innovation. And they are doing wonderful work there about studying the economy of the R&D ecosystem at a national scale. So let's talk about economic flowdown for a second. So Jason operates the Institute for Research on Innovation and Science, and they are working very closely with the Committee for Institutional Cooperation, which is really all the Big Ten universities. And they took 2 years of research expenditures of federal dollars that went to those institutions that were spent on research, and they mapped where that money went and who it funded, how it prepared a workforce, and who benefited from those dollars being spent on that research. So this is actual measures of economic flowdown. In that 2-year period, those 9 institutions, Ohio State, Penn State, Purdue, Chicago, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, they received about $7 billion in federal awards. Well, they received federal awards producing about $7 billion in expenditures during that 2-year period. Almost $2 billion of that was used to purchase goods and services across the United States. About a third of it actually remained inside those 8 states, but the balance of it was spent nationally. And these dollars supported 70,000 employees at those 9 institutions. 70,000 employees. So, where did the money go? So here is the location of the 9 institutions. The 1.8 billion was distributed to about, I think, 1,700 counties across the United States. Widely distributed, a lot of it went to Southern California. Some of it remained, if you look at the light blue, about 25 to 30% remained in the home state of that institution. Another 20% went to the other states within the 8-state compact of the CIC, and the remaining 50% approximately was spent nationally. So that's $9 billion, $7 billion over that 2-year period flowing into an economy at a national scale, but with very local impact, principally in the home state of that institution. So of those approximately $5.5 billion that was spent on personnel mostly, by agency, it was used to support faculty, postgrads, graduate students, undergraduates, and staff, all being operational inside the research ecosystem of those universities. And of the major federal agencies supporting this, about 55,000 or so employees were sponsored by these projects at these 9 institutions. So that's direct educational training benefit in the future workforce of the country. What's interesting is they just released, Jason and his colleagues just released a report, a paper in Science yesterday, and what they found is that doctoral students funded on this federal research flow, most of them end up going into R&D in high-paying jobs and being located very close to their home institution. So that's a direct impact in the knowledge economy of your state, of your land grant or flagship institution. And they tend to stay and generate an economy locally in their home state where they got their PhD. So that's a profound observation too. And I think we're going to find when they do more work that these are the same folks that are starting up companies. So you can see a direct connection between federal investment in R&D and company startup by the PhDs and graduate students and undergraduates who were paid by these dollars. So our research foundation for the University of Tennessee, let's go local now. Let's talk about the state of Tennessee for the UT system. Where did our economy, about our innovation ecosystem go? Well, we actually paid out about $1.2 million to UT inventors through their share of royalty payments coming in. not the, Tony, what was the number you said, $20 million check?
Yeah, 20 million.
We're not at that point yet. I wouldn't mind the problem with a $20 million check. About $3 million of UT research contracts came in because of our licensed IP and the relationship that we have with the companies that are licensing their IP. So there's a churn associated with that. We ended up getting additional almost $1.5 million in industry research agreements to handle future IP development with that company. We ended up investing about $700,000 in patents. We ended up sending some of the money back to the colleges and departments in our university system. We ended up spending some of our dollars to help stand up something I'll mention in a little bit, one of these manufacturing institutes, these national manufacturing institutes. And some of this produced impact by the acquisition of our startup companies by major companies who came in and bought those startups. So that's another measure of economic impact. So in fiscal year 15, that's about a $61 million impact to this economy at scale within the state of Tennessee. So I could talk a lot about invention disclosures, patents, and the like, but what I really want to talk about is the back end of this driving economy. So we have a huge focus now on doing deals, licensing and optioning our IP to companies, and our activity is quite high for a system of our size. We also do a pretty good job of startups right now, and for our size and where our culture is around this, we're not MIT yet. We're a ways away from that. But what's interesting is that $54 million in venture capital investments was made in Tennessee with dollars that are mostly from outside of Tennessee in UT startups. $54 million came into the state of Tennessee for the startups that came out of the UT system. And then $51 million were used to acquire startups that came out of the UT system. So those are big numbers for a system our size, and that represents a very significant direct impact on the economy of the state of Tennessee. So the last thing, the fourth component of that diagram that I showed you is an innovation ecosystem. And you may have heard, and so North Carolina's gotten one, New York's gotten one, Ohio's gotten one, Illinois's gotten one, California's gotten one or two, I can't remember, and Tennessee has one. And these are the Obama administration's efforts to bring manufacturing back on shore, and these are the National Network of Manufacturing Innovation and Manufacturing Institutes. And ours is one that's related to composites. It's called the Institute for Advanced Composite Manufacturing Innovation. It's located in Knoxville. We just won it. I'll talk a lot more about it in the innovation classroom in the next session. And if you really want to see an ecosystem at work, please come and attend that session. But what's interesting is that clustering around Knoxville, where we have Oak Ridge University, we have very low power rates, power costs because of TVA. We have started to assemble an ecosystem around advanced manufacturing for composites and metallics. And this represents companies that are growing that enterprise, Alcoa, BW, Eastman, but we have companies that are moving into the state that are very interested in the knowledge engine that comes out of everybody's the brain in the center of that diagram. They're interested in the user facilities at Oak Ridge and the scientists at Oak Ridge. They're interested in our students and our faculty at the University of Tennessee. And we are creating a dense ecosystem for advanced manufacturing that will have a profound impact on the economy of East Tennessee. And that's where you get to the heart and soul of why a university can provide public benefit and public good for the knowledge enterprise that it manages.